This week's episode is sponsored by
An average grower can't take a risk on a crop that might work. So we're that facility. Way back in time, we taught people how to farm, but people don't need to know how to farm anymore. But in the 40s, that's what we did. 70s is when we transitioned to this research and demonstrations.
Rio Farms of Monte Alto, Texas, is a historical training program initiated for the growth and stability of low-income families and individual farmers. Beginning as an idea by W.A. Cannon, an employee of the Farm Security Administration during the Depression era, Mr. Cannon theorized a system of loans to rehabilitate underprivileged sharecroppers. After a year of government bureaucracy and interference, the FSA came through with a loan of almost $1.3 million, and the business began its operation.
There's so many different roles when it comes to agriculture. There's the farmer, the producer, I mean, you name it, there's a role for it. Tell us what your role is here.
My role here is I'm the president general manager of Rio Farms. We're a corporation, but with that said, I spend a lot of time working with different entities and institutions that we have cooperations with. Some of those being the USDA ARS station in Houma, Louisiana, and also in Canal Point. We work with those two entities on our sugarcane research. We also work with Louisiana State University in that. When it comes to some of our other crops that we work with the A&M Extension Service here in South Texas, and we're starting to do a lot more work with the Citrus Center, which is out of the University of Texas A&M at Kingsville. We work with all of these different entities. We are a place where we can provide the land, the equipment, maybe some of the expertise to grow crops that maybe other folks don't want to take the risk of growing those crops. As everybody knows, agriculture is a big gamble. Most of us growers don't like to think we're gamblers, but Mother Nature is our largest partner, I would think, when you're talking agriculture. So with that said, Rio Farms is a show and tell, and with that we get to do things that other growers might not want to take the risk of doing, but if it works, then we can pass that along to the growers and hopefully improve their operations.
Well, you know, from the road, if you're just driving by, this looks like a quiet place, but it's far from quiet. So I'm excited for you to take us today, and maybe the Nats will join us on our tour since they seem to be hanging around.
Yes.
But I'm excited to see everything that this place has to offer and how they help the farmer.
Well, today, Michelle, we're going to be showing you some of our sugarcane variety research that we do for the local growers here in South Texas. We'll probably spend some time in our grape vineyard, another aspect of Rio Farms that a lot of people don't know we have here in South Texas. And we'll probably wrap up the day with some of our citrus work that we do.
Sugar, wine, and citrus.
Hey.
Can't be a better day.
Yeah, everybody needs sugar, everybody likes wine, and everybody needs a glass of orange juice in the morning.
That's right. Well, let's get going.
All right.
I think these gnats like the humidity as much as I like wine. Tell me a little bit about the winemaking process. Can I just take this grape off and eat it?
You sure could, Michelle. This grape here is it's a winemaking grape. This particular variety is a convent grape. This particular variety has been here in South Texas for well over 100 years. It's a very growthy grapevine, as you can tell. But it does make grapes, and it makes a red wine. The winemaking process starts here. A winemaker would come and get our grapes. Prior to receiving the grapes, we run some chemistry on these grapes. We try to find out what the Brix level is, which that's the amount of sucrose or sugar that's in the wine or in the grape juice. And also what we're looking for is the pH, as the grape or the winemakers prefer a certain pH level for the juice, and that goes into their quality winemaking mixes. But this grape here is edible. The only thing about it, most wine grapes have a thicker skin that helps make the wine probably taste the way it does. But the other thing about these wine grapes is they're seeded. So as you take a bite of one, remember there's some seeds in it. But yes, absolutely, you can eat these grapes. So
well,
have a
try
taste. The size isn't quite what you might pick up at H-E-B, but at the same time, for just coming out here and wanting to have a grape or two.
You just throw the skin on the floor?
Skin on the floor, seeds on the floor.
Animals?
That's correct.
There we go. Circle of life,
that's
right?
it, that's it.
How do you test the pH? I know that when I went to Fredericksburg, they had in-house chemists that decipher whether or not the wine was ready. Do y'all offer that here, or do you ship it off?
Well, actually, Michelle, what we do, we don't have a chemistry lab, but we have the devices that measure the chemistry. So a gentleman that works for me here in the vineyard, Mr. Robert Garza, he collects grapes. He takes a random sample of each variety. He then brings it to our main office, and in the office we do perform the Brix testing and the pH testing that then we provide in an email to our prospective grape buyers. So when the time gets right, we start running these tests weekly, and once the grapes reach the proper levels that the winemakers are looking for, they'll pull the trigger on scheduling a harvest and coming down here to pick up the grapes to take back to their winemaking facilities.
Well, whenever they do that, invite me over so I can make sure to taste the wine.
I will do that, Michelle. We'll make sure of that.
I noticed that some of the leaves have, they're different colors. Is this like a normal crop that a row crop, let's say, how they use pesticides and all that good stuff? You have to take care of these plants the same way?
Here in South Texas, we don't have a lot of insect pressure as some of the row crops do, but what we do have pressure of is funguses. So downy mildew, which affects a lot of our vegetable crops, is to me the #1 enemy of our wine grapes. So yes, in the early growing season when the grapes are flowering, we possibly could be spraying herbicide on them, fungicide, not herbicide, but a fungicide. And most of the grapes in Texas have the same problems. The problem we're fighting this morning with this high humidity promotes the mildew, and South Texas weather, humidity is usually here. So we do find that the funguses are our biggest challenge out here. As the grapes mature and become ready for harvest, there is one other natural enemy here in South Texas that we all have a lot of, and that's the bird population here in South Texas. There is a few species of birds that live here in South Texas, which their favorite summertime snack is our wine grapes. So
I can see why, they're sweet.
Correct. So some commercial wineries will net their vines, but as you can see, we have approximately 5 acres here. So we just let the birds get theirs, and what we have left we make into wine, which historically has been enough grapes to make quite a bit of wine.
Well, great. Well, thanks for taking us through the vineyard. I'm excited for the next stop.
Great.
Just across the Rio Grande is Mexico, and farms being irrigated by the 2,000-mile river stretch coming from the slopes of the Rocky Mountains benefit from this floodplain location.
Matt, there's a lot to show and tell here at Rio Farms, and we haven't even begun to really cover the majority of it, but we find ourselves in your, what do you call it, citrus?
Germplasm.
Germplasm, all right, fancy word.
Big word.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Everyone talks about it, it's all over the place. Let's talk greening.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about greening since this is a research farm.
Correct. So greening is a virus that we have in our trees here in South Texas that other places have as well, but HLB is a problem that we're fighting. It's a virus, like I said. Here's an example of one of our citrus trees that's not doing so well, possibly infected with the HLB virus. Unfortunately, the future of this tree is it probably dies a slow death. At that point, we have to remove the trees and then come back and replant them in a commercial setting. So that's where the real problems lie with greening. It can decimate your grove, and definitely not something we want to have happen to our citrus groves. We're working with folks over at the A&M Kingsville Citrus Center. There is some hope that the big word we used earlier, the germplasm, this actual orchard that we're standing in has been here since the 50s. So with that said, there's a lot of trees that have been through a whole lot in this orchard here. And with that said, some of the smart people at Kingsville are going to come here and look at the genetics of these trees to see if maybe there's something in one of these trees that can help us in the future. So going back in time to find something to help us in the future.
I'm assuming this study that Kingsville is helping you with is extremely intensive because we're trying to find a cure for greening, right?
Correct.
I want to say cure, I don't know that it's, is that the correct word to use?
We would hope we could find a cure, but maybe we can find things that are more tolerant. In the plant world, finding something that's immune may be hard, but there's probably certain varieties that are more tolerant to the virus than others, just the same as some are more susceptible. So we might not find a cure, but we might find things that can make our trees tolerant and still be productive for our yields and not be completely immune, but definitely move us forward with our production of citrus.
And speaking of productive and production, I think this fruit looks a little familiar, kind of like I've seen it at the vegetable show at the Rio Grande Valley Livestock Show.
Correct. This particular orchard was planted in the late 50s. Rio Farms has a long history of helping citrus here in South Texas, and we partnered with USDA well before my time to plant this germplasm. And really what the study was a rootstock study. So as all of y'all in the citrus industry know, we graft our fruit onto different rootstock. And it was this location that a lot of work was done in the early 50s that led us to our rootstock that we use today on our commercial industry here in Texas, which is a sour orange. So as you drive around the valley and see different citrus groves, it's a high probability that those fruit trees are grafted on sour orange. And all of that work was done, again, quite some time ago, but very valuable information that we learned here at this germplasm.
So the average person driving in their car drives past, let's say, 4 different orchards. they're not all the same orange, are they?
No, they're not all the same orange, and there's a high probability that it may be grapefruit. Here in South Texas,
Absolutely.
we're definitely known for our Rio red grapefruit.
Yes.
But we also grow Valencia oranges, Mars oranges, pineapple oranges are kind of a newer variety that people are planting. So citrus industry, very viable part of our South Texas agriculture.
We talked about the vegetable show at the Rio Grande Valley Livestock Show. So if a child wanted to come here and pick fruit, are they allowed to do so?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I do have some ag teachers, 4-H leaders that know about our citrus here at Rio Farms, but now's a great time to share that with everybody. But when the vegetable and citrus show does come up, this is open to the public. So if you can make arrangements with me or the front office to come out here, go through our citrus and pick some of the fruit and enter it in the competition there at Mercedes.
Absolutely. Well, that's good to know for those at home. Contact Rio Farms if you want to send your child over here to pick some fruit for that show.
We would love to have them.
Matt, we were at the Rio Farms headquarters, the Citrus Germplasm, and that orchard was 50 years old.
Some of the trees over 50 years old.
Way older than me. But now we find ourselves in this orchard that seems to be much, much younger. Tell us a little bit
Correct.
about it.
I brought us out here because this is one of our newer established orchards. This is a 100-acre block. We're located right west of the westernmost lake at Delta Lake. And this is an orange grapefruit planting that we did about 2.5 years ago. And as you can see, there's two different types of planting here. One type that we're standing on here is what we call a raised bed, and we put this mesh cover over the bed, kind of twofold. One, to help us keep our moisture as we're watering these trees, and two, just be a barrier for weeds and grasses, as that's a problem in our orchards when they're at this stage because there's a lot of light hitting the ground, but that's what this serves.
I bet you a lot of people at home want to know, how long does it take for this orchard to look like the other orchard?
Correct.
What's
So
the typical span for this fruit to become, or this tree to become fruitful?
The normal standard is a 5-year period. So we plant trees. They're actually a little smaller than this when we plant them, but it's about a 5-year window that you don't produce fruit, but in your 5th year, the trees are mature enough to where they make a low production. But you know, in the industry, 5 years is about what it takes to get an orchard from start to production when it comes to planting a new citrus orchard.
And how much care does this plant take as opposed to an already established tree?
I think they all take a lot of care. Citrus is a hands-on business, as any of the folks in the citrus industry will tell you. This particular orchard does have one advantage. As you will see, it is on a drip irrigation system. I think that's something that a lot of our newer orchards have versus our older orchards. And to me, being at Rio Farms, innovation, those type things that come into play, this is probably the way of the future. We're a lot more efficient when it comes to the watering. We can keep the trees wet longer than a flood irrigation, and just the conservation of water on a drip system versus an open flood irrigation system, big difference. So that's one of the unique things about this new citrus orchard.
Agriculture isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle. It's a passion. It's either part of who you are or it isn't. You pour your time, blood, and sweat into your land and livestock. Nobody understands that grit more than we do. If there comes a time when you need a helping hand, we stand ready. Local, loyal, and here for the long haul.
Internet is more than just uploads and downloads. It's about connecting people. VTX1 Companies is here for you, bringing communities closer together. VTX1 has connected customers for almost 70 years. Our internet service spans across South Texas to some of the most remote areas. Faster wireless service is now available in Palmview, Alton, West Laco, and Pharr. Call 1-800-446-2031 or visit vtx1.net to find out more.
feel like I'm in a jungle, but also at heaven at the same time because I love sugar. But I noticed that sugarcane, there's not really that many fields of it, you know, here in Texas. So you tell me you have 17 different varieties in here? How is that possible when it all looks the same?
One unique thing here at Rio Farms is we provide the variety research program for the Rio Grande Valley sugar growers here in South Texas. So what we have here is 17 of our newest varieties that are from both South Florida and South Louisiana. We've brought them here to Texas and we've planted them here on our farm in an experiment. We have 17 different varieties here that we also plant 3 of our known commercial varieties that are high producers for us here in South Texas. We put those in here as our checks, and then we grow this crop for 3 years, and we take all the data from that and try to see if we have something that's better than what we have here in South Texas. What we're looking for is a high yielding sugarcane from a tonnage standpoint, just pure biomass, what you see around me. But then once we do that, we also have to have this biomass have a lot of sugar in it. So we're looking for the best of both worlds, a high tonnage sugarcane along with one that has a high CRS. And for y'all that don't know CRS, that's our commercial recoverable sugar that we get out of each ton of biomass. And that's one thing we're trying to increase through our program here at Rio Farms for the growers.
So this is sugar.
That is
Just
sugar.
pure
in
sugar.
there for sugar.
I'm about to be in heaven, you guys. I love sugar. That's sweet. That's really sweet. If you ever see a sugarcane field, go try this.
Yeah, and I know one of your next segments is going to be with the Rio Grande Valley sugar growers. I'm sure they'll give you a great breakdown of how we actually process this cane at the Rio Grande Valley mill located in Santa Rosa, Texas. But we take raw product to the mill and we produce raw sugar. So that's the sugar industry here in South Texas.
Can I take this with me and gnaw on it on the way home?
Absolutely.
Matt, give me sugarcane 101. Tell me about irrigation, tell me about pesticides, tell me just everything I need to know about sugarcane.
Right, historically sugarcane is planted between the months of September and November historically. So we'll plant in September through November. If you can get some timely rains in September, you may not have to water it to get it started, but majority of the time we'll plant and then we're going to irrigate it up. So we have an irrigation to get it started, and then yes, during the growing season, you know, different operators irrigate at different levels, but I'm going to say a good 8 waterings on average for a sugarcane crop. As far as herbicides, when we plant, we do use some herbicides at planting time to help reduce our broadleafs and our grasses, but one of the catches of sugarcane is it is a grass. So there's really not a lot of herbicides out there that do a good job on our grasses because they're too closely related to the crop we're growing. But we do use some of that, and we're working on some projects. We don't have a lot of pests in our sugarcane, but we do have one pest that's it's a Mexican rice borer. He's not real friendly to us sugarcane growers. One of the things here at Rio Farms we're working on is trying to come up with some solutions for that pest. But really, plant it, water it.
Can this plant be, is it drought resistant? Does it have to be planted on irrigated land, or can a dry land farmer grow it?
Good question. Unfortunately, this is a irrigated crop, so you're only going to see sugarcane
dry land farmers
on your irrigated farmland. I grew up on a dry land farm, so you got to have irrigated land to grow sugarcane. The main weather phenomenon that sugarcane doesn't like is cold weather. So being that we're here in South Texas, that's why we're allowed to grow sugarcane, but a freeze is really our biggest enemy in the sugar industry with the weather and the pest. It's cold weather. 32 degrees or less, us sugarcane growers start having trouble sleeping at night. So
with the way that it feels now, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, today's heat, the sugarcane's anytime the degrees over 90 degrees, the sugarcane's growing. So that's one unique thing about our region. We're still growing crop in mid-October in South Texas, whereas our fellow industries in South Louisiana and South Florida, for sure the Louisiana crop is not growing anymore. Their shortness of days and just the cooler nights turn the cane off, but good old South Texas, the heat we're in today, sugarcane thrives. So, you know, I failed to mention we apply fertilizer to the sugarcane as well at planting, but other than that, It's a grass. You keep its feet wet and it grows.
So most crops, I shouldn't say most crops, but some crops are 4 to 6
Sure.
months, even sometimes a little longer to grow. And what about the sugarcane, and how tall can it grow? Because you're pretty tall, and it seems a little tall,
Yeah.
a lot taller than him.
So sugarcane is a longer growing season crop. Historically, 12 to 16 months growing time for a sugarcane crop. Along with that, its height. All of these varieties grow to different heights, but somewhere around 15 foot high is a pretty tall, lush, high biomass cane. But another thing that happens when the canes get large, they do something that we refer to as lodging. So as you walk through this, you see some of the canes laid over. That's actually a good sign to us growers, because that means it's heavy tonnage whenever it lodges.
Oh, that's good to know. Means it has a lot of sugar.
It does. The only problem with that is the people that harvested for us over at the sugar mill, they would prefer for it to stand, but it's just something we have to deal with here. And again, it's a sign of high tonnage when it lodges. So that's a quick rundown of growing sugarcane. And again, it's not a highly technical crop like some of our crops. To
Right.
make cotton, pretty high end. You need to be out in it once a week. This crop, not so much.
Well, there you have it. There's your Sugarcane 101.
With modernity ever prevailing and industry growth, Rio Farms changed its philosophy in 1972 from operating as a charitable and benevolent institution to one of agricultural research and demonstration. Since then, Rio Farms has developed and operated as a private research foundation in conjunction with Texas A&M Research Center, the USDA, ARS, and several other private industries. Currently, Rio Farms has 27 tenant farmers, farming almost 17,000 acres of land on crop shares alongside the research staff, conducting and demonstrating on about 2,000 acres.
Matt, this has been such an amazing experience, and I always say at the end of every episode, it's so amazing to see God's hand at work in everything that He does and every little asset that it takes in order to have a successful farming or research and demonstration operation. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to take me and my team out here and showing the world really what y'all do.
Well, had a great time doing it, Michelle. Really, that's what we're here for, is to kind of show and tell, like I said earlier. So we really appreciate you thinking about us. I think Rio Farms has a good story to tell. We've been here for a long time, established in 1941. So our roots are deep in agriculture here in South Texas, and should continue to be. So thank you for having us.
Absolutely. God bless, and until next time, we'll see y'all later.
This week's episode is sponsored by